Good morning, students. Welcome to the 7th session of the first unit, Investment Decisions and Risk Analysis of the subject Advanced Financial Management. The topic covered under this session is sensitivity analysis. In previous classes, we have dealt with two approaches, that is risk-adjusted discount rate factor approach and certainty equivalent approach. In today's session, we learn about the sensitivity analysis. What is its meaning? What are the objectives of sensitivity analysis, steps in it, merits and demerits. The outcome of this session is to make you understand the concept of sensitivity analysis and how it can be used to take care of risk in capital budgeting. In previous class, I have dealt with the problems on certainty equivalent approach based on NPV technique and IRR technique. As you all know that certainty equivalent approach, in this we use the certain equivalent coefficients to reduce the uncertain cash flows to certain cash flows and then discounting those certain cash flows at risk-free rate, and then we are taking a decision whether to accept the project or to reject the project. In today's session, we learn one more technique of analyzing the risk in investment, that is sensitivity analysis. Sensitivity ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಪದ, ಇದರ ಅರ್ಥ ಏನು? ಸೂಕ್ಷ್ಮತೆ. So, whatever the variables are there in the project, we'll see its meaning first. It's a technique of analyzing. It's a technique, ಇದೊಂದು ತಂತ್ರ. It's a technique of analyzing the impact of change in each of the different underlying variables. Here variables ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವ್ದರ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೋ, ಯಾವ್ದು ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಆಗಿರಲ್ವೋ, ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ಆಗಿರಲ್ವೋ ಅಂತದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಯಾಶ್ ಇನ್ಫ್ಲೋ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಅದು ಕ್ಯಾಶ್ ಔಟ್ಫ್ಲೋ ಆಫ್ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಸೇಲ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಟು ಚೇಂಜ್. ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ಸ್, ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆದ್ರೆ, ಒಂದು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದು NPV ಮೇಲೆ, ಕ್ಯಾಶ್ ನೆಟ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಮೇಲೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ವಾಟ್ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ NPV. ದಟ್ study we do in sensitivity analysis. Means it is a technique of analyzing the impact. ಎಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರಭಾವ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಆ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅದರ ಪ್ರಭಾವ ಎಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟಿನ NPV ಮೇಲೆ ಬೀಳುತ್ತೆ ಅಥವಾ IRR ಮೇಲೆ ಬೀಳುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನೋಡೋದೇ ಸೆನ್ಸಿಟಿವಿಟಿ ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್. We do 3 different assumptions here. One is pessimistic, that is worst condition, expected, pessimistic, expected and optimistic. Most likely, expected andre most likely, and optimistic if conditions are favorable. So such situations we call it as optimistic. Pessimistic means if conditions are not stable, somewhat changing, andre we'll take as pessimistic, and expected andre most likely. It is also known as what if analysis. If cash flow changes, if it doesn't arrive what we accept, then what it will have impact on NPV. If project life ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, if cash outflow changes or if cost of capital changes, then what impact it creates on project NPV, that we are going to study in sensitivity analysis. The main intention of sensitivity analysis is to find out the most sensitive factor. ಯಾವುದು ತುಂಬಾ ಸೂಕ್ಷ್ಮವಾಗಿದೆ, ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಆದ್ರೆ ಆ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಎಷ್ಟು NPV ಮೇಲೆ ಬೀಳುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನಾವು ನೋಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಆ ಉದ್ದೇಶದಿಂದ ಈ ಸೆನ್ಸಿಟಿವಿಟಿ ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್ ನ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. The main objective is to find the most sensitive factor, that is a factor having least percentage of sensitivity, or the factor small change which may cause drastic change, a big change in the project's NPV or IRR. The steps involved in sensitivity analysis approach is identification of variables. First and foremost task is to identify what are the variables which affect the NPV. Those all variables, we need to make a list of it, and then define the quantitative relationship among them. We need to define the relationship between a variable and the NPV. Then ascertain sensitivity means we need to ascertain what are the changes, what changes might occur in that variable, that we need to know. And ranking of the factor from most sensitive to least sensitive. We should, after getting the sensitivity of each factor of each variable, we should know the sensitivity of each factor or variable. Then we need to rank them from most sensitive to least sensitive, and then finding the most sensitive factor. So first step is to identify variables. Then we need to determine the quantitative relationship, and then we need to ascertain the sensitivity, then ranking, and then finding the most sensitive factor. The merits of sensitivity analysis is it helps the decision maker to understand the project in totality by identifying variables that affect cash flow forecast. This method provides a broader sense of understanding, because we are identifying the variables. We are not taking only one variable. We are identifying as many as variables that affects the project's NPV. So it makes to understand the project in totality, in a whole manner. It helps to disclose inappropriate forecast and thus guide the decision maker to calculate relevant variables. So closing our eyes, if we forecast the future, it will not be appropriate. It helps the investor to disclose, to open up the inappropriate forecast, to remove the inappropriate forecast, and it helps to guide the decision maker to calculate relevant variables, not taking all irrelevant variables, only taking the relevant variables which have impact on NPV. Those variables are only considered, and helps the decision maker to make a good forecast. The demerits of sensitivity analysis is it provides ambiguous results. The results may not be clear in sensitivity analysis. It fails to focus on the interrelationship between variables. We are not concentrating on the relationship between variables. We are just identifying the variables, and we are finding the sensitivity of each variable. We are taking one variable at a time, and we are not establishing the relationship between variables. Means, what is the relationship between cash inflow and project life of the project, or cash inflow and cash outflow? We are not establishing the relationship here. ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಮತ್ತೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದರ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಸಂಬಂಧವನ್ನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದೊಂದು ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ನ ತಗೊಂಡು ಅದರ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ NPV ಮೇಲೆ ಎಷ್ಟಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಫೇಲ್ಸ್ ಟು ಫೋಕಸ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಇಂಟರ್ ರಿಲೇಶನ್ಶಿಪ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ಸ್. ಇಟ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಒನ್ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್. ಒಂದು ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಅಟ್ ಎ ಟೈಮ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದರ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ NPV ಮೇಲೆ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಉಳಿದಿರೋ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತೀವಿ. ಇಟ್ ಮೈಟ್ ನಾಟ್ ಬಿ ರೈಟ್, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಒಂದು ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬೇರೆ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ಬೇರೆ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಪರಿಣಾಮ ಬೀರ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರಿಂಗ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಒನ್ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಅಟ್ ಎ ಟೈಮ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕೀಪಿಂಗ್ ಆಲ್ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ಸ್ ಅಟ್ ಅ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಇಟ್ ಮೈಟ್ ನಾಟ್ ಬಿ ಅಪ್ರೋಪ್ರಿಯೇಟ್. It does not consider the probabilities associated with occurrence of different value of variable. Here we are not considering the chances. We are not considering the probability or chance of occurrence for the variables. We are not considering here. We are not assigning any probability to the occurrence of the changes. We are just taking the variables and then finding out the impact on NPV. It is not a risk measuring or risk reducing technique. Here we are not measuring the risk, or nor we are by using this technique we are reducing the risk. So it is about the sensitivity analysis technique of appraising the project and then taking a decision about the project feasibility. So thank you.